Hey, how are you all? So, today what we're going to be working on is our Jump Street data tables and graphs. This information will help you with any data table and graph, but we're working with the data that we worked on last week during our jump test. So, please open your data table from your jump test lab report. When you open your data table, it should look like this, as you see on my screen here. The columns should be labeled appropriately as your independent variables. One-legged jump distance in centimeters, two-legged jump distance in centimeters. You definitely need to put the units you're measuring in the column title. Then you want to put your tests, and how many tests you're doing depends on the experiment, and your mean jump distance. We'll talk about calculating that in a moment. So I'm going to enter my data. I've already collected my data, so I'm just going to enter it from a prior test. You, though, should be collecting the data while you're jumping so you have an accurate representation of what you jumped. So you can see my first jump was 87 centimeters, my next one was 90, then I jumped 94, and my last jump was 86. For my two-legged jumps, I jumped 112, and then I jumped 126, then I jumped 120, and after that I jumped 115. So you see, all of these are just numbers. I didn't label any of them with the units. For example, 87 cm, because once I do that, you notice it jumps to the other side of the screen. The computer reads that as a word, not as a number. So that's why we put our units in the column header so we know, oh, this is in centimeters. So I can use just the number and the computer will read it as a number. We want to calculate the mean or the average jump distance. In order to calculate the mean, you need to sum all of your tests on one test type, so one-legged distance in centimeters. So you sum all those numbers together. Then you divide by the total number of numbers. So in this particular instance, I would type an equal sign. Spreadsheets can do calculations. You just have to tell it you want to do a calculation. The equal sign tells it that a calculation is happening. If you don't include the equal sign and you do 87 plus 90, what'll happen is it will just read that as a word. So try to insert the equal sign, then sum all of the numbers, 94 plus 86. Notice how I put those in parentheses here. By putting those in parentheses, it will add all those together first, because that is the sum. Then, after those are all added together, divide the total by the number of numbers. There are 1, 2, 3, 4 numbers here. So I divide it by the number of numbers. It gives me 89.25 centimeters is my average. Notice my average should come between my lowest number and my highest number. If it's above my highest number or below my lowest number, it can't be an average. Something to keep an eye out is if you type your formula and you don't put the parentheses, what will happen is the division will happen first. There's a rule in mathematics, it's called PEMDAS. That's parentheses are going to happen first in any formula. Exponents will happen second. Division, multiplication, and then addition and subtraction. Multiplication and division are the same. They are on equal footing. But you can see division comes before addition. So what would happen is if you left this like this, it would divide 86 by 4 first, then add 94, then add 90, then add 87, giving you 292.5, which, as you can see, is definitely not the average of 87, 90, 94, and 86. So make sure you put the parentheses around your numbers that you want to sum first. I'll do that again on this side, equals parentheses 112 plus 126 plus 120 plus 115, end parentheses, divide by the number of numbers, which is 4. Yes, I will tell you there are easier ways to do this, such as formulas that are pre-built into spreadsheets. But I want you to learn this way first so you understand how to calculate an average utilizing the mathematical formulas that we have in place. So I've now calculated my mean. Now I want to insert my chart. My data table is complete, as you see down here. To insert my chart, the first thing you want to do is highlight the entire table. That includes all labels, all test labels, etc. Then you will go to Insert, Chart, or up in the top right, you can see up here, there is a icon, and if you hover over it, it'll say Insert Chart. Either one works. You click Insert Chart, and you might have to wait a second while the computer thinks. You will see that the chart has now been inserted, and you'll see it gives me a title. Is that title perfect for what we're doing? Does it tell me what we're looking at? One-legged jump distance in centimeters and two-legged jump distance in centimeters? Maybe something that might be better is, how does the number of legs affect the jump distance? You can even use your scientific question as the title. That could be something that lets people know what they're looking at. The next thing that I like to talk about is the vertical axis. Notice that it has the numbers, and it does say over here, distance in centimeters. However, to be explicit or to use terms that people can understand, I like to label that. So if I go to my Customize on the chart editor on the right-hand side, you will see that it's on chart axes and titles. Chart title, I can change to what we just did, or I can go to vertical axis, and I can make the title of that centimeters. Now I know that these numbers represent how many centimeters that I jumped on the y-axis. My x-axis, jump data collection, maybe I could say on this I go to horizontal axis, or I double click on jump data collection, and I change that to test number. And you can see that the test number is what we are having on our x-axis. So now we have a graph with a pretty decent title. One thing that I don't like about this is that it starts at 80. When a graph starts at 80, it's really hard to compare it to some other graphs. So I like to have a standard starting point depending on the graph that I'm doing. So for this graph though, I would go to my chart editor, go to vertical axis, and I would set my minimum value at 0. By setting my minimum value at 0, it gives me a much more direct comparison of the distances that we jumped. I'm going to take this chart, I'm going to drag it down into the jump data graph. I'm going to size it to the size that I want for this lab report so that people can read it easily. And then if you have time, after you've completed your data analysis and after you've completed your chart and your data table and you've answered all the questions below, you can even have some fun. You can change the chart style by going over to the chart editor. You can change the background color. You can make it 3D. You can change different parts of the chart by double clicking on it, and it will say, oh, look at that. On this series, I want it to be yellow. On this series, I would like it to be neon green. So you can change how your chart looks. But again, only do that after you have completed everything else on your lab report. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to come into my room and talk to me about it, or talk to your science teacher directly, and they can walk you through anything else. Have a great day.